For the returning Marines of Fox 25, it was only a 4-week war and 6-month campaign. But for these mostly 20-somethings, it was the full circle of life, when the adventure and abstraction of combat became the unforgiving reality of war.
Good evening, everyone. We're going to begin tonight with the American war machine, enormous, energized, and rapidly preparing for war with Iraq.
Cameraman Mike Elwell and I first hooked up with Fox 25 just after their Christmas leave at an urban combat training site in California. Their training map overlays read, Baghdad.
Hey, bud, he's dead. We got him.
Wearing body sensors for recording simulated hits from enemy fire, they were taking the training dead serious.
Fox 2, this is Fox 8 over. Platoon sergeant's still alive, platoon commander's dead.
Company First Sergeant Ed Smith, one of only 2 people in the company with previous combat experience from the First Gulf War. After 20 years of service, his retirement papers were put on hold for this latest crisis in the Middle East.
Fox Company has been training very hard, and our motivation has been there, but what we have now that we haven't had in the past is we have a definite focus and taking it a lot serious because they know they may be asked to do it here in the near future.
If you've never been to combat and you haven't experienced it, you don't know how things are going to go.
Like Captain Johnson, I too was predictably apprehensive and slightly naive about the realities of war on my first combat assignment as a Marine officer in Vietnam. 75% of Fox 25, class of 1968, was killed or wounded in the 2 weeks it took them to retake Hue City during the Tet Offensive in Vietnam.
And we got an old beat-up helmet for you, which we're going to mess with a little bit, and we're going to fix it up on the plane over there.
Okay. Every man was paired up with another in the unit as his guardian angel.
When I first heard we had a reporter getting embedded in the company, I was like, great. All right, this is going to be a pain in the butt. Now, first thing you hear is when you hear gas is quit breathing.
Okay. My guardian angel was Gunnery Sergeant Dan Ferguson, the company gunny and mother hen of Fox 25.
I'll be bringing in with me all the food, ammunition, water, and mail from home, and any admin stuff that we need to take care of while we're deployed, the Bible, because there's no atheist in a foxhole, trust me.
They knew their time was getting close when it was their turn for smallpox and anthrax shots.
Thank you for shopping Anthrax R Us. Please come back for all your biowarfare needs. Thank you.
They sprayed their desert uniforms with scorpion repellent and were told to make out wills for the first time in their young lives.
Marines were actually sitting down, taking the time and writing the letter, "Dear Mom and Dad, and if you're reading this, I'm dead."
The gravest danger facing America and the world is outlaw regimes that seek and possess nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons.
After the President's State of the Union address, Cindy and Dan Ferguson were as split as the rest of the country on whether the diplomatic posturing and military threats would ever escalate into war.
Every day, I go back and forth in my own mind whether or not we should be going. So, you catch me at a good time, I'm going to tell you we're going, and if you catch me on a bad time, I'm going to say I don't really think we should be going. So, I'm on an emotional roller coaster around here.
I pronounce that you are now husband and wife together. May Christ kiss the bride.
Some decided to get married just before leaving. I stood in for friends and families who couldn't be there. But Lieutenant Bill and Kia Matori's honeymoon was cut short. The next day, we were told we would be leaving in less than 24 hours.
Love you, sweetie. You'll be all right. I'll be back soon. All right? You want to make it personal. You want them to remember that moment as the most special moment of their life, because it may be the last time you see them. So we went out to the truck, said our goodbyes, and I waited till they pulled out before the long walk back.
There were no speeches, ceremonies, or media coverage like the other departures they had been watching on TV. Fox 25 left in the dead of night to, as they say, walk the country's talk.
My husband said it seems every generation has to do this. And this is this generation's battle.
you think the rest of the country fully appreciates?
No. They don't have a clue. No.
Bye, Daddy. Bye, Daddy.
Ponies.
In an ironic twist on Homeland Security concerns, which many of the troops believed to be a main reason for sending them to the Middle East, no knives were allowed on their military flight to Kuwait. However, assault weapons and grenade launchers were permitted. The uncertainty of their situation was always more unsettling than any concerns they had for their physical well-being. Young Marines spend less time thinking about their own mortality than when they'll be coming back next.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have landed in Kuwait. We would like to express our gratitude and we wish you a very safe and successful mission.
I think it's important for all of us, myself included, to get our minds right, be professional, and let's do what we came to do. Fox 6 out.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
It was the 1st of February, and Fox 25 was now in Kuwait.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Be safe. Thank you for your service.
A desert wake-up call on our first morning in Kuwait.
I think I woke up with like a full cup of sand in my mouth. I couldn't breathe. I think that's how I woke up. My nostrils were glued shut. It was just like, this is it. This is hell.
So this is how that's starting out. And I think as people start to talk about how long the troops can stay in the desert, if there's a delay in the tactical operations, I think you're going to see a pretty good indication today. Is that my teeth? Oh, God. Our staging base, 30 miles south of the Iraqi border, wasn't built yet. We slept where we were unceremoniously dropped the night before, in the middle of the desert, without tents or any protection.
Which way is Iraq?
Hello, square them up. Get them in.
A 13-mile desert hike on day 2 is how a basic infantry company like Fox 25 gets acclimated to their new environment.
You can shape the battlefield, you can do all sorts of things, but ultimately you don't own it until you're walking on it. And that's what we do.
It's also their way of checking out a reporter like myself, as old as their fathers, to see if I would be able to keep up and fully appreciate their experience.
Can you feel the love?
Since it's bad form for Marines to complain in the field, they rarely did for the 6 weeks we would live in the desert, training and waiting for the invasion.
Do you like what I've done with the place?
Fighting the flies and the bugs that get in your food, staying warm, not showering for 3-4 weeks at a time. The simplest little things like brushing your teeth, those things take on, they're like chores in itself.
Living out here with much less and in more difficult conditions than they ever imagined they could required a whole new way of thinking, especially for the younger Marines, like Corporal Michael Elliott.
This was some bathroom material at home. It's called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and the main part I like about it is simple ways to keep yourself cool in stressful times. Make space in your heart for those really bad days. Trust your inner signals. Don't sweat the future. Make peace with boredom. That's all of us here. Because, we're big bad Marines. We're not supposed to be reading little books like this.
Leaving Saddam Hussein in possession of weapons of mass destruction is not an option. Not in a post-September 11th world.
Most of the Marines believed the 9/11 tragedy, international terrorism, and the possibility of weapons of mass destruction were all connected and justification enough to invade Iraq. For them, the final diplomatic efforts were just a distraction and delaying the inevitable. They knew their only way home was through Baghdad.
For me over here, I'm loving it. I'm about to go to war against the worst dictator on earth right now, and I hate him the most.
For Iraqi-born Lance Corporal Tony El-Shamiri, it was personal between Saddam Hussein and him. A Shiite Muslim, he fled the country with his family during the Gulf War in 1991. They were interned in an Iraqi refugee camp less than 50 miles from where he and his fellow Marines were now preparing for the invasion.
100% confident in our military will destroy him very, very quickly.
Saddam was going to find out. You know, we're rolling, and we're heading up north. I got my eye.
When Fox 25 was attached to a tank battalion and assigned amphibious assault vehicles, they assumed a more advanced role in the invasion plan.
No, we ain't stopping until we get to Baghdad and the Iraqi people.
But the novelty of riding instead of walking quickly gave way to the grim reality of what life would be like bouncing across the desert in them like Spam in a can for days on end. We heard the president's declaration of war on the radio on the morning of March 20th, shortly after moving up to the Iraq border.
The enemies you confront will come to know your skill and bravery. The people you liberate will witness the honorable and decent spirit of the American military. In this conflict,
I don't remember the exact quote, but I remember him saying that essentially there was always loss in war. It just reaffirmed, you know, for me, hey, you know, serious business. We're getting ready to go do it.
Bless you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Gas.
They say the enemy has a vote in every attack plan, and the enemy has been voting quite frequently the last few hours. In addition to the gas attack drills we've been going through, there's been reports of over 90 T-72 tanks just north of the border, in front of the other regiment that's supposed to be making the attack the same time we are. They've ordered this regiment to launch the attack early, to take pressure off of them. They were given 45 minutes notice to get up the line of departure and cross into Iraq.
Going north. Sooner we go north, sooner we go home.
No more drills.
That was hard.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Games are over. Time for the real deal.
We have just crossed the concertina wire from the Kuwait side of the border, and now we're in the no man's zone in between Kuwait and Iraq. We've not received any fire since we were south of the Kuwait border, when there were some signs of missile attacks and we had to don our gas masks. We're trying to get across the border before the moon comes up.
It was pitch dark. I remember Scud missiles being fired, artillery landing.
I remember trying to hold on to cameraman Mike Elwell and the top of our assault vehicle as we made the first broadcast from the ground invasion of Iraq on a satellite phone taped to my hand.
As we're now moving and trying to penetrate into southern Iraq as fast as we can.
As you hear the news from Mike Soraya, it is now a full-scale invasion.
2nd Tank Battalion, with Fox 25 as its infantry unit, was part of what they called the opening gambit.
It was an adrenaline rush. We knew about the chemical potential, the potential to use chemical weapons. We were in our chemical protective suits.
The Iraqis' weapons turned out to be conventional, and resistance was sporadic. By sunrise, the first Iraqi soldiers we actually saw had changed into civilian clothes and were surrendering by the truckload.
They pulled up to our POW camp in vehicles and said, "Here we are, we're surrendering." They pretty much gave themselves to us, and we're like, wow, this is way too easy.
For the first 2 weeks of the war, we kept pushing north while living, eating, and sleeping on top of each other in these 30-year-old amphibious assault vehicles.
A lot of fights erupted inside the tracks. I did get sick. Everybody got sick inside the track. All business was done inside the track.
This turned out to be the fastest and deepest invasion in Marine Corps history, but the vehicles were constantly breaking down.
Leave the packs on the outside. This track will catch up.
Whenever one broke down, the troops had to quickly move all their gear to the other vehicles.
Let's go!
At one point, a third of them were out of service. Tracks originally designed to carry 15 Marines were now packed with as many as 24.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. It'll be tough. Very crowded conditions, but Marines will do anything. They'll stack them 10 deep to accomplish the mission.
The only thing that stopped the Marines after crossing the Euphrates into what many believed to have been the Garden of Eden was a sandstorm.
It's thick and you can't really breathe and you can't see, and it's just red. All the sky turns to red. It was like something biblical, end times, plagues, the earth or something like that.
You know, I couldn't see, there was nothing. I couldn't see my hand, and here we are patrolling.
After the blinding sandstorm, a torrential rain soaked our chemical suits, caking everybody and everything with mud.
Mother Nature out here definitely has a sense of humor. Worst part about it is this. This right here, I don't even know if this thing will fire right now.
Going right way. See, Baghdad up there.
The deeper we pushed into Iraq, the more difficult it was to get the fuel, food, and water we needed to keep moving.
I didn't like the fact that I was having to ration the food and water to the men. When we dropped down to 2 meals a day for, I want to say a 3 or 4 day period, it made me extremely nervous.
When local militia along the route started harassing our movement with rocket and sniper fire, foot patrols had to be dispatched to flush them out.
I think maybe you had some flashbacks back to the 60s.
As soon as we came over that rise and seeing those Marines going through this high grass.
To me, it was starting to feel and look a lot more like Vietnam and the start of tedious guerrilla warfare. The stop-and-go movement and news reports of a slowdown in the advance was the first hit to the troops' morale.
Ready? We're not going in pairs.
Going in teams.
We were pumped up. Hey, we're combat, we're infantry Marines, we're ready to go kill, we want blood. And then haven't seen anything. A lot of Marines kept saying, we're not going to see any combat, the war's over.
We came out with 206. I want to go home with 206. If we don't have to get decisively engaged, that's fine with me. If it comes to that, then we'll do our jobs.
A few days later, while trying to take and cross a strategic bridge over the Tigris River, Fox 25 made contact with its first unit of Iraqi regulars. After crossing the Tigris, Fox 25 briefly celebrated having survived their first firefight with the enemy without suffering any serious casualties.
We're getting closer to the fight now, and maybe today it seems like the beginning. It's a little more real to everybody, and I know everybody's kind of up on their toes right now.
Later that night, busloads of military-age young men fleeing Baghdad started surrendering at our position, 75 miles south of the capital. By dawn, the road was filled with civilians wanting to surrender as well. Fox 25 thought their war was over, but it was just beginning.
Fox was kind of riding high on emotion. We felt like, hey, this war thing isn't too bad. We drive, we shoot, we push through the next day.
Baghdad today. We're gonna go to Baghdad.
On World News Tonight, with U.S. forces closer to Baghdad faster than they thought, the Republican Guard is being pounded from the air.
April 4th, the main north-south highway leading to Baghdad was lined with civilians fleeing south, away from the capital. Fox 25's tank convoy had been unstoppable and relatively unscathed from previous ambushes. They were more confident than ever they could now make it all the way to Baghdad without serious casualties.
So this is our good luck charm? Pretty much looks like it.
To get a better perspective of the final push to Baghdad, I switched out of the overcrowded armor assault vehicles into an unarmored Humvee, manned by Miami reservists temporarily assigned to Fox 25.
Within minutes of leaving our lines, we were hit again. For the third straight day, we're taking contact from a main Iraqi brigade stationed on the main road leading into Baghdad. We only have 32 miles to get into Baghdad, and it looks like we're going to be fighting all the way up.
RPGs were going off. These were enemy out there with rockets.
RPGs about 1,000 meters to our front on the left flank. Keep your eyes open.
RPGs hitting in front of our track, behind our track, above our heads.
We'd go through certain stretches where there was a lot of enemy, there was a lot of fortifications, there were a lot of troops on the ground, equipment and whatnot.
At first, it looked like the Marines were randomly shooting everywhere. while in fact they were shooting at areas where their lead elements had previously reported taking fire from. The roadside was littered with discarded uniforms, abandoned artillery, and trucks from an Iraqi Republican Guard brigade making their first and last stand on the southern approaches to Baghdad.
We were told that their enemy was wearing civilian clothes, and so we weren't hesitating to shoot.
Get the out of the way! Out of the way!
What is making this route particularly difficult are the number of civilians along the route trying to surrender or supporting us as we go, but definitely caught in the crossfire.
Put your hands up! Put your hands up!
We had several KIAs, several other additional casualties break. They're working that, and they're also turning around as we speak break.
We're now on the outskirts of Baghdad in the industrial area. We lost 2 of our tanks, we had several of our people wounded, and we're trying to get back to them. As we get closer to Baghdad, we see more artillery, more trucks, more signs of fortifications, but not any more troops.
Half an hour up the road is when we met that ammo dump, and that's when it just went to hell. A huge warehouse full of ammunition exploding, hitting our track, and blowing out the windows to vehicles, things exploding all around us.
It was literally raining steel.
First Sergeant Smith was yelling at everybody to get down in the vehicles, it's too dangerous.
The explosions were getting more intense, and they were just absolutely rocking the tracks. I was trying to get the unit out of the area.
Since we were part of a larger convoy, when the lead tank stopped well ahead of us, they probably didn't realize that we were stopped next to this ammunition dump that was exploding.
What up? You're shooting!
Everybody get down. Stay down while sitting in this killing zone by this ammunition dump. Tell them to keep pushing north. These guys can't get out. Tell them to push north.
Go!
Push north!
Go!
Go, go! Push north!
In the heat of the moment, I definitely crossed the line from journalist and observer to a former Marine officer trying to get our part of the convoy moving again and out of the kill zone.
Get past it! Don't stop! Get past it! Get past it!
Moments later, we heard over the radio that Fox 8, the first sergeant, Ed Smith, had been mortally wounded.
I got a real bolt of lightning shot through me when I received that word.
Fox 8 still breathing? They're trying to get him emergency evac right now out of here.
Yeah, I can see the tears streaming down the cheeks of the Marines as they're pulling his body out of the hatch.
After 20 years of service, First Sergeant Smith had put in for retirement before he left the country. A bear of a man everyone thought to be invincible, he already had his next job as a police officer.
So many emotions are running through my mind. How could this guy was not supposed to die? He was our leader, and if anybody had combat experience in our company before, it was him.
Keep it going, First Sergeant. Keep it going, big guy. Keep it going.
He has a pulse. It's kind of getting weak. We got an IV on him, so he's looking good.
How's he? How bad is he?
He's hitting the head, Mike. Hopefully, to get him back quick enough, he should make it.
First Sergeant Smith was still alive when he was medevaced out, but died several days later. That same afternoon, 2 other Marines in the convoy died, and 7 were wounded on the outskirts of Baghdad when Fox 25 thought their war was winding down.
What I was thinking is maybe when night rolled around, maybe it would die down, but it didn't die down.
Still recovering from that day's 5-hour firefight and the loss of their first sergeant, Fox 25 scrambled to set up a hasty defensive perimeter and roadblocks around their position.
We're gonna bound in by teams, so go ahead, keep support by fire where they're at, and then we'll just go in and start clearing.
As night fell, they were less than 10 miles south of Baghdad.
There is no any trace, no any existence to the American troops or British troops in Baghdad at all.
The Iraqi Minister of Information was still giving press briefings in Baghdad, claiming the Marines had been stopped in the south, more than 100 miles away.
They were shooting long-range rockets at us. We were taking sniper fire, artillery fire. We don't know who to trust and who not to trust.
Eyes on this building. The rest of us are going to...
We had just heard earlier that day a terrorist full of explosive charged one of the lines and killed some soldiers and stuff. So we weren't going to take any chances with vehicles who failed to stop at our checkpoints.
We had Marines back, and they fired warning shots at any vehicle that approached us. We thought that would be a universal signal to anybody that approached the checkpoint that, hey, you got to stop.
Let's shoot it to the left. It looks like to the left would be the best way to avoid hitting anybody.
After seeing or hearing the warning shots, most approaching vehicles quickly turned back.
We got a vehicle coming. We got a vehicle coming. We got a tracer.
When one did not, the Marines followed their procedures and stopped it by fire. 2 men in the front seat were killed, their wives and children in the back seat wounded.
You just got to try to do the right thing. That's all you can do, and not a good thing happening.
Another one coming in behind it.
4 or 5 of them back there.
While I put down the camera to help the Marines treat the injured women and children, we could see the lights of the approaching trucks.
So as the lead truck came in, the Marines opened fire, and it started to swerve out of control. That's when Mike came, grabbed the girl, and took her out of harm's way.
What happened?
Directly behind the lead truck, a minibus and another truck, all stopped by a hail of gunfire. To everyone's horror, 4 more adults and 3 children were killed, and several others wounded.
We were here helping the kids. The truck came right down the line. We took the kids and jumped them against that berm. Took them right over the top of it.
I'm going.
This is madness.
There was a little girl on the bus that laid in a very grotesque position when she got hit. And she was the first image I saw when I shot my flashlight into the bus. So her image sticks with me. You know, I mean, I'd never seen anybody die before. The guys were hurting over the civilians. To see the children really wreaked havoc on their psychological well-being, as well as mine.
The fall of Baghdad may be near, but ABC's Mike Soray, embedded on the outskirts of the city, reports that lives continue to be lost.
There was a horrific scene here last night.
My report on the tragedy the next morning, with several officers and NCOs watching closely just behind the camera, also addressed 2 major questions about the embed process. Would the military try to suppress the bad news, like these civilian casualties? And could reporters lose their objectivity by getting so close to their units, like I had with Fox 25?
I think the Marines made the right call. You know, was that avoidable? I don't know.
As I reported, I thought the standard procedure used for setting up a hasty roadblock was questionable, even if Fox 25 had the time that night to properly set it up before the first car incident.
We had to stop vehicles that were moving, some at very high rates of speed.
But from my position on the road during the second incident, there was no question that the lead truck attempted to run through the roadblock after the warning shots and had to be stopped, along with the minibus and truck following right behind it.
I think yesterday was probably a defining moment that I've had so far in my life. And after yesterday and the day before, I think there's no more curiosity. I think people have seen the horrors of combat, and no one looks forward to any more of it.
The tragedy was treated as another unfortunate fog of war incident by the military. As a news story, it was quickly eclipsed by reports of the imminent battle for Baghdad.
A combination of the first sergeant and that tragedy, it was evident that there was death everywhere. We had to forget about what happened. Our mission is to get to Baghdad. It was kind of like that's when we expected the fight of our lives.
On World News tonight, this April day, the U.S. controls Baghdad. The war goes on, but what a day.
Of all the military contingencies they had prepared for, the reception that greeted them on their arrival to Baghdad April 9th was never one of them.
I think it was uplifting for the Marines. They felt like they had accomplished something. They'd gone into the heart of Baghdad, which is synonymous with basically all things evil, the bad place, and now we were moving at will throughout the city.
I felt like we were victorious. It felt like as a company, as a whole, we had made it. There was a sense of pride, like, you know, we've been on a long journey and this is like the end of it. Like, we won the gold medal, and standing in front of Saddam's picture, just kind of like, haha, you know, you lost and we won.
It's like a blessing that me coming back here and being with my own people and everything. He's not only local.
Born in Baghdad, Lance Corporal Tony Al-Shamiri was finally home after having fled the country 12 years earlier at the end of the Gulf War.
Most of the crowd comes around me because they hear me talking Iraqi and they want somebody to talk to and understand.
Got us through, right? Got us through.
We're going platinum.
Our celebration at Baghdad University was short-lived. Fox 25 was unexpectedly dispatched on another mission north to Tikrit. There was no time for goodbyes after all we had experienced together these past 4 months. As the unexpected looting swept across Baghdad, cameraman Mike Elwell and I started hitching rides with local Iraqis in search of a helicopter out.
Maybe you could help in returning back electricity to Baghdad. All right?
Expectations of rapid reconstruction, as dramatic as the military advance, were still high.
They could return it back within maybe 2 weeks or less than this.
It was mid-April, and I was finally heading home, back to the world, as the Marines call it. Fox 25 and most Marine units stayed on as the occupation force in southern Iraq through the brutally hot summer, when temperatures often reached 120 degrees. They fired only 3 shots during the last 3 months of their new mission to restore peace and order to their part of Iraq. The first sergeant, Ed Smith, was the first of Fox 25 to come home. In addition to his military funeral, the city of Anaheim, California, held a police funeral for patrolman Ed Smith. He had started working there as a reserve police officer in advance of his retirement from the Marines, which was delayed by the war. Afterwards, my family and I met with the Fox 25 families we had become so closely connected with throughout the ordeal.
You know, I haven't gotten a letter for a long time, so just being able to see.
You probably haven't gotten mail because of that confusion when they got attached to another unit. Their greatest concerns now, when would their men be coming home, and how much had the experience changed them?
I had Marines coming up to me and say, Corporal Elliott, I don't want to kill anybody anymore. And it was all I could do just to say, hey, I know, I feel the same way you do, but we still got a job to do out there.
We've all changed. But if anything, I think it might be for the better. We know our limits. We know how ruthless we can be if we have to. But I think that a lot of these younger men have also woken up a part of their compassion and their love of life.
I'm going to return home to my mom and my family the same way I left, you know, but maybe a little stronger, a little more mentally fit, not so naive about what's going on with the world and what combat is really like.
I present to you the Marines of Fox 25. Company, dismissed!
God love you. We knew you were gonna make it, and we prayed for you all the time. Oh, how we love you.
Their hearts were touched by fire, is how Oliver Wendell Holmes described the indelible imprint a war leaves on those closest to it and the entire Fox 25 family who walked the country's talk.
My hero, my hero.
War is not romantic to me anymore. It's very black and white now. I'd like to see what Iraq looks like in 10 or 20 years, and to hopefully this is a better place than when we left it, and if some of the things that are wrong here, if those wrongs can be righted, I think this war will be worth it, and the death of the first sergeant won't be in vain.
This is Mike Saray for Nightline.